On March 15, 2024, in Atlanta, Georgia, a nationwide logistics collapse began to unfold as a prominent logistics provider, Translogix, experienced critical failures in its automated routing algorithm. This platform, relied upon by thousands of retailers across the United States for efficient product delivery, facilitated the movement of goods through advanced algorithms designed to optimize routes based on real-time data inputs. The initial failure was rooted in an unnoticed bias within the routing algorithm, which had been developed to prioritize delivery speed over cost efficiency. A recent update to the algorithm had unintentionally embedded a preference for certain high-traffic zones while neglecting remote or less densely populated areas. Due to an oversight in the testing phase, the adjustment went unrecognized by the developers. This bias manifested as a significant misconfiguration in how delivery routes were generated, essentially causing an imbalance in shipping assignments. The algorithm's dependency on real-time traffic and weather data also meant it was poorly equipped to handle sudden changes, like route blockages due to construction, which exacerbated the issue. Almost immediately, the first measurable impact became apparent. Within hours of the algorithm's deployment, shipment delays began to accumulate. Retailers began reporting that deliveries taking an average of 3 days were stretching to as long as 8 days. Translogix handled around 5 million shipments daily, and by the end of the first week, approximately 20% of these deliveries were significantly delayed, leading to a staggering loss of $3 million in potential revenue daily as retailers were unable to restock shelves adequately. Essential items from groceries to electronics began to run low in major urban centers across the country. Consumer dissatisfaction surged as online retailers reported a dramatic increase in canceled orders and a 60% uptick in customer complaints sent to customer support. Internally, confusion spread like wildfire within Translogix. Employee emails circulated within various departments, attempting to pinpoint the source of the delays. The incident response channel lit up with frantic messages as logistics coordinators scrambled to implement partial fixes. Some team members speculated about the impact of a recent server migration that had been undertaken to improve overall system performance, while others pointed to an update that had been released just before the issues began. Assumptions of server-related delays momentarily distracted from the bias in the algorithm. The data analytics team began aggregating performance metrics, only to encounter discrepancies that confused attempts at diagnosing the nature of the problem. A lack of robust logging mechanisms further hampered investigations, as the team struggled to obtain a clear historical view of algorithm performance prior to the update. External signals began to trickle in almost concurrently with the internal turmoil. Customers took to social media platforms to express their frustration, and news outlets began to post minor mentions of supply chain issues unfolding across the nation. Monitoring systems set up to detect anomalies in delivery performance triggered alerts, but these were initially dismissed. The operational teams at Translogix were under pressure to smooth over the situation and manage public perception, leading to a focus on issuing public statements that reassured customers of ongoing improvements. By March 22nd, just 1 week after the initial incident, the situation had escalated further. The technical team confirmed that the volume of shipments delayed had spiked to over 30%, indicating that the algorithmic bias was compounding as more deliveries were planned under the flawed routing system. As complaints grew louder and retailers threatened to seek alternative logistic partners, the urgency around addressing the issue heightened. The fallout was not just financial, the brand reputation of Translogix was now at stake. The CEO of Translogix convened an emergency meeting with top executives to address the catastrophic inefficiencies. Internal investigations were launched, probing the development and operational layers of the logistics infrastructure, while external stakeholders and major retail partners began to demand accountability and clarity. With a growing pile of shipments at various transit points and no immediate solution, the logistical framework upon which the company operated appeared more fragile than ever. Continuously misallocated resources and hours spent deciphering algorithm logs led to mounting frustration. Teams focused on partial fixes, attempting to reroute urgent deliveries manually, often led to further paperwork and micromanagement inconsistencies. Compounding these issues, tensions began to fester within the company as employees pointed fingers, fearing that responsibility for the failures would fall on them. As the media caught wind of the situation, reporting increased about the nationwide delays in product availability. Major retailers contemplated emergency measures, including implementing stricter inventory controls and seeking alternative delivery solutions. This in turn raised competition concerns and placed Translogix in an increasingly precarious position. The mounting pressure was palpable as executives prepared to present emergency measures to shareholders, who were becoming restless and demanding answers about the technological vulnerabilities that had led to the logistics collapse. With each passing day, the ramifications of the initial bias embedded in the routing algorithm became clearer. The cascading effects were revealing deep-seated weaknesses within Translogix's operational protocols and execution standards. A growing fear spread internally that without addressing the fundamental issue of algorithmic accountability, the company could not only face significant financial losses but also irretrievable damage to its market position. On March 29, 2024, as the pressure intensified, senior leaders of Translogix called for an exhaustive review of all algorithms used across their platform. The implications of failure began to settle in, and in the midst of a storm that appeared to be far from over, organizational resolve teetered dangerously close to collapse. The next steps would shape the trajectory of not only the company but also the national logistics framework, as systemic failures loomed large on the horizon. On April 3, 2024, Translogix hired a third-party cybersecurity firm to perform an independent audit of both the algorithm and the overall system architecture. With public scrutiny mounting, management recognized the necessity of transparent disclosures. The audit revealed that not only had the algorithmic bias gone unnoticed due to inadequate testing protocols, but also that several undocumented modifications had been made under time constraints leading up to its deployment. This lack of formal change management bypassed essential oversight, compounding the crisis. Concerning reports filtered through various media outlets revealing how major retailers were losing upwards of millions of dollars per day due to empty shelves and unfulfilled orders. By mid-April, customer dissatisfaction reached critical levels as social media backlash escalated into organized protests against Translogix, urging corporate accountability. As the damage mounted, legal notices began arriving from affected retailers. Stakeholders filed lawsuits, claiming breach of contract due to failure to deliver goods and an overall failure to maintain service-level agreements. By late April, law enforcement commenced investigations into potential fraud linked to the mishandling of information and negligence in operational duties. In response, Translogix announced a series of emergency changes, including a temporary suspension of the biased algorithm and an immediate operational overhaul plan. Compliance audits were initiated and managerial changes took place to install accountability at various levels. A public apology was broadcasted, alongside commitments for algorithmic transparency moving forward. However, the repercussions continued. By June 2024, fears of lingering issues forced several top-tier clients to terminate contracts, resulting in irreversible revenue losses. Consequently, Translogix faced bankruptcy by August 2024, culminating in the confiscation of assets and operational shutdowns that further disrupted the logistics industry nationwide. By October 2024, with the landscape forever altered, former executives faced legal actions, and ongoing lawsuits continued to unveil further systemic failures. The move towards tightening regulations on algorithmic decision-making was noted as a direct outcome of this collapse. Translogix was ultimately dissolved, with most of its operations taken over by rival companies. As of the end of 2024, the logistics sector began rebuilding, now under more stringent governance and enhanced oversight to prevent similar failures.